There is a little story that I could tell about each and every one of you here, which I don't think that we have the place rented long enough to do that.
Everybody but me.
And so these balloons are going away. I think I'm going to be on TV.
There you go.
But
Maybe over the hill now. Don't walk there.
No, the tack is right there next to you.
oh, the tack. Tacky thing to do. But there are just a few things that I have enough time to tell, and about people in here, like the time that Ray and I decided one time we were going to buy a boat, and there we found this little rowboat in Petaluma, and we went down and got this rowboat, and I think we paid $2.50 and stole the paint to paint it with, and then my uncle went up and I had to get him to haul it down to the Petaluma Creek so we could launch it, and we were so happy to have this boat down there, and I never did pay him for the paint.
You never paid for the boat either.
Or,
And then he sold it to some guy.
no, somebody stole it!
Yeah,
Somebody
told me
stole it!
Stole it.
Somebody stole the boat. And when Sam and I were in college together, Sam was really into a lot of things, but mostly Sam was into smart stuff. And if it hadn't been for Sam, I never would have graduated from college, because he taught me how to take the inverse Laplace transform of hyperbolic test. And if it hadn't been for Sam, I couldn't have done that. And other things that I'm trying to think of to tell you stories about, like Norm Gravel. Norm Gravel, one time, yeah, like, before I tell you about Norm Gravel, what she forgot to tell you about the time that I first met Jeannie was that we were at this party, and we had gone out for dinner, and she had evidently gotten some bad drinks or something, maybe some bad leg of lamb. And she was not feeling very well, and it was obvious that she needed to throw up. And she was laying there, and I says, I've got the perfect, absolute solution to that. You don't need to take kaopectate or any of that stuff. I kissed her, and she immediately threw up. Right, Jeannie? I said that was exactly what she needed. But Norm, one time was over at our house, and Norm was at our house, and I have to say this is one of the most funny times. Sharon put one over on me tonight, but I put one over, and I think this is the reason she's getting even with me. Because Norm came over and he says, I got this terrific idea. No, he didn't say that. He said, come here, I want to tell you something. On our swimming pool, we had this mat out there, and he says, I bet you that I can get on that mat and float on the pool without, and he had a three-piece suit on, he says, without getting my clothes wet. And I says, no, you cannot. And he says, yes, I can. So he brought the thing over there, got over, and he got close to the swimming pool, and he laid down, and he laid right down there on the swimming pool, and he laid on this mat, and he floated out there in the pool. I says, Norm, that is terrific. Come here, I'll help you out. And I grabbed his hand, and he fell in the water. And I said, that's terrific, Norm. I says, let's do that to Sharon. So he says, but my clothes are all wet. So we ran upstairs, we threw them in the dryer, and it was polyester suit, of course. So we run it dry, and I says, wait till Sharon gets home. So Sharon, he puts his clothes back on, and I said, Norm, because I was all upset at first because he had got his suit all wet. He says, no, it's okay, it's Sears and it's strip dry and all that stuff. And besides, he's going to throw it away. Sharon got home. Norm is walking around the pool, and Sharon is standing on the deck, and Norm says, I'll bet you I can lay down there on that mat without getting my clothes wet. Sharon, I said, no, you can't. He says, yes, I can. Sharon's standing up and says, Norm, don't do it. So Norm stands over by the edge of the pool, and the mat's over there, and I said, Norm, I'll help you. And Sharon says, don't you jumping up and down and screaming on the edge of the deck. Said, how could I possibly do such a bad thing to a good friend of mine? And Norm got up laughing, and then she threw rocks at all of us. But we got one on her for that one, didn't we, Norm? Just got her for that. And I could think about other stories. No. The only one I can think about, when I was a young man and we had first started going up to the mountains in Highway 4 around Bear Valley, and it was a place called Arnold, and we were looking at some property there, and we had our daughter who was in the back seat of the car, and she was only about 3 or 4 years old at the time, and we had gone up there to meet some dear friends of ours, and we had a cake in the back seat. It was a chocolate cake in a pan with chocolate frosting on it, and it was sitting on the floor in the back seat. And of course, Wendy was in the back seat, and she was sitting there with her nice little white and frilly dress on, and she was sitting there, and then she sat in her place all the way up there, and it's about a 4-hour drive, and we got close, and we were getting almost there, and she says, are we there yet? She started running back and forth across the back seat, and we finally got there, and we drove in, and we stopped, and we got out, and Wendy said, look at my shoes. And of course they were covered with chocolate frosting and cake. And she says, somebody stepped in the cake. Well, I can't think of any more stories because Frank told the story, the bad one. But I really thank God that you guys all came here tonight. And although I know God has a real strange sense of humor, because well, one of the things that he did is he made the pit in the avocado too big. And the other thing he did, which was real strange, is he put this organ on your face with these 2 holes that drip this stuff, and he turned it upside down over your mouth. That's an awful thing to do.
And his nose drops all the time.
But but I wanted to tell you about my brother. He called from Saudi Arabia. I really appreciated the fact that he called there for me, and it's a real strange country over there. As a matter of fact, Iran, which is in all the newspapers and now these days, is a strange country, but it used to be called Persia. And in the olden days, Persia was a big rug-making country. And it was...
You need to blow out your candles now.
Oh, but let me finish this story.
Your candles won't
There
be
was...
there.
Okay.
If you got a couple seconds, go ahead.
Okay, well, there was... in this country of Persia, there were these people who used to have trades, and they used to bring on the back of camels and places like that. They bring them down to the Gulf, and they would sell their wares. Well, this one particular person was, he raised bees, and he brought these honey back on the back of these camels down, and he came to the capital city, which was Abadan in the Persian Gulf, and he said, he went up to knock on the door of the shamir who ran the place, and he says, I've got this honey for the shamir. The guy at the door said, well, the shamir isn't here. He said, well, what am I going to do with all this honey? Because there's nobody else in this town. He says, well, the shamir is at his palace, his summer palace out on the Persian Gulf in a little town called Gatcha. And he says, well, how am I going to get all this honey from here to the palace in Abadan, over there to the summer palace in Gatcha? And he says, well, I don't know what I would do if I was you, but I'd hire a taxi. So he says, that's a good idea. So he piled all his honey on the back of this taxi cab, and from then on, He was known as the Abbot Antigatchi and the Taxi Honey Man.